The next morning arrived with a quiet tension that felt different from the day before. Aurora noticed it the moment she stepped back into the kitchen. No chatter. No nervous laughter. Just focus. Even the air seemed sharper. The contestants moved to their stations without being told. Whatever Dorothea had planned, it had already begun to shape the room before she even spoke. Aurora placed her hands lightly on the counter, grounding herself. Across from her, Shayna stood still, eyes lowered in thought. Hugo adjusted his apron with precise movements. Marcus stretched his shoulders once, as if preparing for something physical. Then Dorothea entered. No announcement. No dramatic pause. Just presence. She stood at the center of the kitchen, her gaze moving slowly from one contestant to the next. Today, she began, you will face a challenge that removes your greatest comfort. Aurora felt a slight tightening in her chest. Comfort. That could mean anything. Dorothea continued. You rely on technique, on planning, on control. A small pause. Today, you will cook without one of those. A screen behind her lit up. 3 words appeared. Technique. Time. Vision. A murmur moved through the room. Dorothea lifted a hand slightly, silencing it. You will each draw one. Aurora's mind began turning immediately. Without technique. Impossible. Without time. Pressure beyond reason. Without vision. No planning. No direction. Just instinct. Her heartbeat quickened slightly. One by one, the contestants stepped forward. Marcus reached first. He unfolded his slip of paper, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. Hugo followed. Then Shayna. Aurora stepped forward last. She picked up the final folded slip. For a moment, she didn't open it. Then she did. Vision. She exhaled slowly. No planning. No concept ahead of time. She would have to build the dish as she went. Across the room, Shayna glanced briefly at her. Aurora didn't need to ask. She knew Shayna had seen it. Dorothea spoke again. You will be given access to the full pantry. A shift. Not limited ingredients this time. Endless possibilities. However, Dorothea continued, you may not decide your dish before you begin. Aurora almost smiled. That was the rule. No vision. No mental blueprint. You will start cooking, Dorothea said calmly, and the dish must reveal itself to you. A deeper silence settled over the room. This wasn't just a test of skill. It was a test of trust. In themselves. In instinct. You have 75 minutes. The clock appeared. Aurora placed her hands flat against the counter. Begin. She didn't move immediately. That would be planning. Instead, she reached for the first ingredient without thinking. Onions. She picked up a knife and began slicing. The motion was steady, familiar. The rhythm helped. Next, garlic. Then oil into a pan. The onions went in. A soft sizzle. Already, something was forming, but she didn't let it fully take shape. That would break the rule. She moved to the pantry. Her hand hovered briefly, then settled on tomatoes. Fresh. Bright. She brought them back, chopping them quickly, adding them to the pan. The scent deepened. Savory. Warm. Still undefined. Across the kitchen, Marcus moved quickly. Too quickly. He was trying to force direction. Aurora could see it in the sharpness of his movements. That would cost him. Shayna, on the other hand, was slower. Measured. She was adapting. Listening. Good. Aurora returned to her station. She tasted the base. Acidic. Aromatic. Her hand reached again. Spices. Cumin. Coriander. Not measured. Felt. She added them. Stirred. The dish was beginning to speak. But softly. She needed protein. She walked again to the pantry. Paused. Closed her eyes for a brief second. Then opened them and reached. Lentils. Interesting. She nodded slightly to herself. Back to the station. Rinsed. Added. Liquid. Stuck. The mixture began to simmer. A direction was emerging now. Comforting. Layered. But still incomplete. 60 minutes remained. Dorothea moved between the stations silently. Watching. Not interfering. Aurora kept her breathing steady. No rushing. No forcing. She tasted again. Better. But something was missing. Texture. Contrast. She scanned her station. Her eyes landed on a small basket. Bread. She picked it up. Tore a piece. Toasted it lightly in a pan with oil. Crisp edges. She set it aside. Not yet. Across the room, Hugo had slowed too much. Indecision. That was the danger of this challenge. Without vision, hesitation could paralyze. Aurora refused to let that happen. She moved again. Her hand hovered over herbs. Then chose mint. Unexpected. She smiled slightly. That was the point. She chopped it finely, holding it aside. 45 minutes remained. The kitchen felt different now. Less chaotic. More internal. Each contestant locked into their own process. Aurora stirred her pot slowly. The lentils were softening. The flavors deepening. She tasted again. Now it was clear. A spiced lentil stew. But lighter. Brighter. She added a squeeze of lemon. The shift was immediate. She closed her eyes briefly. Yes. That was it. But she wasn't finished. She added the mint. Freshness layered over warmth. Balance. She looked at the toasted bread. A decision formed, not planned but understood. She tore it into rough pieces. Added a touch of oil. Then spices. Quick toss in the pan. Crisped further. A garnish. A texture. 30 minutes remained. Aurora stepped back for a moment. Just one. She studied the dish. It had come together naturally. Without force. Without overthinking. That was the lesson. Across the room, Marcus was correcting something again. Too many corrections meant too many mistakes. Shayna, however, was plating elements already. Confident. This would be close. Very close. Aurora returned to her dish. Final adjustments. Salt. A touch more acid. She stirred gently. Then stopped. No more. She wouldn't overwork it. 20 minutes remained. Plating began slowly across the kitchen. Aurora chose a deep bowl. She ladled the stew carefully. The color was rich, inviting. She added the crisped bread on top. Not too much. Just enough. A final touch of fresh mint. A light drizzle of oil. Simple. Intentional. 10 minutes remained. She wiped the edges of the bowl clean. Stepped back. Looked again. It felt complete. Not perfect. But honest. 5 minutes. Dorothea's voice cut through the quiet. Final touches. Aurora didn't move. She had learned that lesson already. Time ended. The contestants carried their dishes forward. Placed them in a line. Stepped back. Silence returned. The judges approached. One by one. Tasting. Evaluating. Aurora kept her gaze steady. Not on them. Not on the others. Just forward. Dorothea reached Marcus first. A small nod. Then Hugo. A slight pause. Then Shayna. Longer. A second bite. Aurora felt the tension rise again. Then Dorothea stepped to her dish. She examined it quietly. Not just looking. Understanding. Then she tasted. Aurora watched. Still. Dorothea took another spoonful. Then a piece of the crisped bread. A subtle shift in her expression. Not obvious. But present. She wrote something on her tablet. Then moved on. Minutes stretched. Finally, the judges returned to the center. Dorothea stood before them. This challenge, she said, removes certainty. A pause. And reveals truth. Her eyes moved across the contestants. Some of you struggled without control. Marcus looked down slightly. Some of you hesitated. Hugo exhaled quietly. And some of you listened. Her gaze stopped. On Aurora. Then shifted. To Shayna. Aurora felt it immediately. It was between them. Again. Dorothea continued. 2 dishes stood out. A deeper silence. For their ability to adapt. Aurora's heartbeat steadied. Not faster. Calmer. Shayna. Shayna stepped forward. Composed. Focused. Aurora. Aurora joined her. The space between them felt charged. Not hostile. But undeniable. Dorothea looked at both of them. Both dishes showed instinct. She turned slightly to Shayna. Your dish demonstrated confidence. Then to Aurora. Yours demonstrated trust. A small pause. The difference was subtle. Aurora didn't breathe. But important. Dorothea straightened. Aurora. A single word. But it carried everything. You are the winner. A quiet ripple again. Shayna nodded once. No disappointment. Only acknowledgement. Aurora inclined her head. Thank you. But this time it felt different. Not just relief. Not just progress. Something deeper. Understanding. Dorothea addressed the room again. As we move forward, the challenges will not become easier. A slight pause. They will become clearer. The contestants absorbed that. Because by now, she said calmly, you should be beginning to understand who you are. Dismissed. The kitchen slowly came back to life. Cleaning. Quiet conversations. Aurora returned to her station. She moved methodically. But her mind wasn't on the dishes. It was on the moment. On the shift. Outside, later that evening, the air was cooler. The city stretched out before her again. Lights flickering in the distance. Her phone vibrated. A message. Maya. Angel says the dinosaur better be finished soon. Aurora smiled. She typed back. Tell her it's almost alive. She slipped the phone away. Looked back at the studio. Something had changed. Not just in the competition. In her. The pressure was still there. The rivalry was sharper than ever. Especially now. With Shayna. But beneath all of it, there was certainty. Not loud. Not overwhelming. Quiet. Steady. The kind that didn't need to prove itself. And as the competition moved closer to its final stages, one truth became impossible to ignore. She wasn't just surviving this anymore. She was becoming something through it. Something stronger. Something clearer. And whatever came next, she would be ready. Because now she knew how to move forward, even without seeing the path first. The following day did not begin with tension. It began with silence. A deeper kind than before. Not the nervous quiet of uncertainty, but something more deliberate. As if the kitchen itself was waiting. Aurora noticed it immediately. Even the lighting felt softer, though nothing had changed. She stepped to her station, placing her hands lightly on the surface. Grounding again. Breathing steady. Across the room, Shayna was already there. Still. Focused. No glance this time. No acknowledgement. That, more than anything, told Aurora everything she needed to know. They had moved past comparison. Now it was something else. Dorothea entered without announcement. As always, her presence alone shifted the space. Today, she said, you will not cook for us. A small ripple of confusion passed through the contestants. Aurora didn't move. She listened. You will cook, Dorothea continued, for someone who does not know you. A screen behind her flickered to life. Images appeared. Families. Workers. Children. Elderly. People from different walks of life. Real people. Not critics. Not chefs. Each of you, Dorothea said, will be assigned a guest. A pause. You will create a dish for them. Aurora felt something shift inside her. This was different. Not about technique. Not about competition. About connection. Your guest will not speak to you, Dorothea added. The shift sharpened. You will only observe. Aurora's mind adjusted instantly. Reading people. Understanding without words. That was the challenge. You have 90 minutes. The longest time yet. But time wasn't the difficulty. Understanding was. One by one, guests entered the kitchen. They were guided to seats behind each station. Aurora turned slightly. Her guest was an older woman. Calm, gentle expression. Hands folded neatly in her lap. There was something familiar in her posture. Something steady. Aurora studied her quietly. No rush. The woman looked around the kitchen with soft curiosity. Then her gaze settled on Aurora. A small smile. Not wide, but genuine. Aurora inclined her head slightly in return. Dorothea's voice cut through. Begin. Aurora didn't move immediately. Observation first. The woman's clothing was simple. Neutral tones. Comfort over style. Her hands showed signs of years of work. But not harsh labor. Something precise. Careful. Aurora's eyes softened slightly. She turned to the pantry. No rushing. No assumption. Her mind began to form possibilities. Comfort food. But elevated. Something warm. Nourishing. Not heavy. She selected ingredients slowly. Rice. Chicken. Fresh vegetables. Herbs. Nothing aggressive. Nothing overwhelming. Back at her station she began. Washing the rice carefully. The rhythm was calming. Intentional. She glanced once more at her guest. The woman was watching quietly. Not judging. Just present. Aurora began preparing the chicken. Simple cuts. Clean. She heated a pan. Oil. Gentle. Not too hot. She wanted control. The chicken went in. A soft sear. She didn't push it. Let it develop naturally. Across the kitchen, Marcus had already started quickly. Too quickly. Again. He hadn't adjusted. Hugo was hesitating. Still thinking too much. Shayna. Aurora glanced briefly. Shayna was watching her guest closely. Not cooking yet. Good. She understood. Aurora returned to her dish. She added garlic. Onion. The base forming. She kept the flavors mild. Balanced. She didn't know preferences. So she built something adaptable. Layered. She added a light broth. Let it simmer. Then turned to the rice. Cooking it separately. Fluffy. Not sticky. Precision mattered. 75 minutes remained. Dorothea moved silently between them. Watching. Always watching. Aurora plated a small sample. She turned slightly. Walked toward her guest. Placed the spoon gently in front of her. No words. The woman looked at it. Then at Aurora. A small nod. She tasted. Aurora watched carefully. Not the action. The reaction. A slight pause. Then. A soft exhale. Subtle. But clear. Comfort. Aurora understood. She returned to her station. Adjusted. A little more warmth. She added a hint of ginger. Not strong. Just enough. Then fresh herbs. Brightness. Balance. The dish was evolving. Not by plan. But by response. 60 minutes remained. Across the room, tension was rising. Without direct communication, some contestants were struggling. Marcus was overcompensating again. Too many bold flavors. Hugo still uncertain. Shayna had begun cooking now. Slow. Controlled. Her dish looked refined already. Aurora focused inward again. She tasted. Better. Closer. But not complete. She needed texture. She considered briefly. Then reached for almonds. Lightly toasted. Crushed gently. Not overpowering. A subtle crunch. She added them as a topping option. Not mixed in. Choice. That mattered. She plated another sample. Offered it again. The woman tasted. This time. Her eyes closed briefly. A longer pause. Then a small smile. Aurora felt it. Not victory. Connection. 45 minutes remained. She returned to her station. Now refining. Not building. Adjusting seasoning. Balancing the broth. Ensuring the rice was perfect. Nothing rushed. Nothing forced. She worked with quiet precision. Across the room, the energy was uneven. Some rising. Some collapsing under pressure. Shayna remained steady. Aurora could feel it without looking. They were moving in parallel. Different approaches. Same understanding. 30 minutes remained. Plating began. Aurora chose a simple presentation. A bowl. Rice at the base. Chicken and vegetables layered gently. Broth poured carefully. Not flooding. Just enough. She added the crushed almonds on one side. Fresh herbs on top. Clean. Inviting. She paused. Looked at it. Then made one final decision. A small wedge of lemon. On the side. Optional brightness. Choice again. 20 minutes. She stepped back. Watched her guest. The woman's eyes rested on the dish. There was something there. Recognition. Not of the food. Of the feeling. Aurora understood. This wasn't just cooking. This was translation. Emotion into flavor. 10 minutes. Final adjustments across the kitchen. Aurora didn't move. She had learned. Stillness was sometimes the final step. 5 minutes. Dorothea's voice. Finish. Time ended. The dishes were presented. Guests tasted first. Not the judges. Aurora watched. The woman picked up her spoon. Slowly. Tasted. A pause. Then another bite. No analysis. No critique. Just eating. That was enough. More than enough. The judges moved afterward. Observing reactions. Not just flavors. Understanding impact. Dorothea stopped at Aurora's station. She didn't speak immediately. She watched the guest. Then the dish. Then Aurora. Why this? She asked. Aurora answered calmly. She felt steady. A pause. I wanted the food to feel the same. Dorothea studied her for a moment. Then nodded slightly. Moved on. Minutes passed. Quiet. Then the judges gathered. Guests stepped back. The contestants stood forward again. Dorothea spoke. This challenge was not about skill. A pause. It was about awareness. Her eyes moved across the room. Some of you cooked for yourselves. Marcus looked down. Some of you tried to impress. Hugo exhaled quietly. And some of you listened. Her gaze moved. Stopped. Aurora. Then Shayna. Again. Always. 2 dishes created connection. Aurora felt her breath steady. Not tense. Ready. Shayna. Shayna stepped forward. Composed as ever. Aurora. Aurora joined her. The space between them felt different now. Not rivalry alone. Respect. Dorothea continued. Both dishes understood their guest. A pause. But one dish. A slight shift. Disappeared. Aurora didn't move. Not as food, Dorothea clarified. As intention. She looked directly at Aurora. It became experience. A final pause. Aurora. There it was again. Clear. Certain. You are the winner. No ripple this time. Just quiet acceptance. Because it made sense. Aurora inclined her head. Thank you. Shayna nodded once. A small smile. Not defeat. Acknowledgement. They were close now. Very close. Dorothea addressed them all. As you move forward, she said. Understand this. A pause. Cooking is not what you make. Her gaze steady. It is what remains with the person after. Silence followed. Then dismissal. The kitchen slowly returned to motion. Cleaning. Packing. Leaving. Aurora stayed a moment longer. Looking at her station. Then turned. Outside, the evening had deepened. The city lights were brighter tonight. Or maybe she was seeing them differently. Her phone vibrated. Maya again. Angel says the dinosaur better be huge. Aurora smiled softly. She typed back. It's big enough to be real. She slipped the phone away. Looked at the sky. There was something quiet settling inside her now. Not excitement. Not pressure. Clarity. Each challenge had stripped something away. Doubt. Overthinking. Fear of imperfection. What remained was simple. She understood now. Why she was here. Not to win. Though she would try. Not to prove anything. But to become something. Something honest. Something precise. Something that didn't need to force its place. Because it naturally belonged. Behind her, the studio stood still. But inside it, everything was moving, shaping, refining. And as the final stages drew closer, one truth became undeniable. The competition was no longer about standing above others. It was about standing fully within herself. And that was a challenge far greater than any mystery box, far deeper than any timed dish. But she was ready for it. Because now, she no longer needed to see the path ahead. She only needed to trust the step she was taking. And that was enough. For now.